Okay, so I'm going to put the first one. I think you can see them, but just
Hi,
I'm going to
Tammy.
move the first
Good
one at least.
evening.
Good
How are you?
evening. So the it's been hectic. He
I
knows I'm
know you're
traveling.
stressed out.
A little bit hectic, but so I apologize in advance if my internet's unstable, but we're going to do our best. Okay, so this is hi there. I'm the betrayed partner of a porn addict, mother of mesh men, possible narcissist, and I am at a complete loss as to if I should stay in the relationship or not. You can skip to my main question at the bottom where all caps are. However, well, let's do that. The main reason I stopped actively working on these questions is because I do not. Okay, hang on a second. I think we have to go back. However, context in case it helps. D-Day was on my birthday in 2020. We started seeing a few months later. Up until a few months ago, we haven't had disclosure for many reasons. My CSET kept up.
Tammy, we're losing you, unfortunately.
I will try to move. I have to. So, can you read it?
Well, I don't have the bottom part, the all cap, the rest of it. All I have is on the questions because I did not see, and then I don't have.
It was in the unanswered, so I'm going to move it to answer live, and then
Thanks.
hit done.
Yeah.
So now both of them will be in answered. Okay.
Okay, great. Great.
You got
Oh, okay, there's all that. So I can do this. Why don't you go get your better Wi-Fi? So let me tell, hi folks, I'm going to miss Tammy. We're going to make this work for now. So, so I do think we need to read more of this. I'm just going to get through it. We haven't had a disclosure. The main reason she's resistant, my CSAT, meaning her certified therapist in sex addiction, kept upping her prices to the point where I couldn't afford them. I'm so sorry. And I also found her very insincere. She would forget my partner's name or situation after a year of working closely with her. I want to say that not all therapists are very good just because they're certified. And that's one of the reasons we ask you to call Tammy, reach out to Tammy at Seeking Integrity, because we've worked with a lot of these folks. We've trained a lot of these folks. So you may have 5 therapists in your town. Just grabbing the nearest CSAT is not necessarily going to produce the best result. As you probably know, lots of people have certifications and licenses, but you want to go to the doctor who knows what they're doing. So we can't help with that. And Tammy put that in the text. Anyway, I know in my heart that I have expressed endlessly that I need disclosure, which to those of you who don't know means I want to know what's happened in my life. I want an honest accounting of what I've been through. And I want my spouse to just say it. This is what's happened. This is what we've been through in a therapy session. So I really need disclosure. But he puts it off and he says, I haven't finished or submitted my questions. And therefore, his therapist says we can't move forward, nor does he want to do disclosure. The main reason I stopped actively working on these questions is because I did not see him moving forward in my recovery. And my issues with my therapist mentioned previously, more recently, he's been very defensive and aggressive and gaslighting me in moments where I'm vulnerable and triggered and sad. I'm walking on shaky ground because I have no closure. I don't really know what happened. He says he refuses to do the 12 steps because he doesn't work. It doesn't work. I love him, but I'm miserable, I'm exhausted, and I'm very close to ending things. Understandable. We live together and I'd rather work things out, but I don't have the tools to make a decision on my own. My heart keeps ruling my head when things get so bad, so I know I should leave, especially when he's extremely verbally abusive. And I can only imagine what that sounds like. I want to give us one more chance, but I feel like it has to be done in a way where I can finally decide yes or no. My big question is, how do I make a definitive decision to end things? So I feel confident that I've exhausted all options, given him every chance I can. Is there a smart way of discussing it with him in order to make a strategic plan going forward without regrets? So just to say it real quick, any major step that we take in life, there's going to be good and bad. And so no matter how good it, and this is just life, right? No matter how good a decision you make, you're going to have regrets. That's just how life is. So I just can't promise you that you won't have regrets. So this is what I'm hearing. I feel like if you just said one or two of these things, I would say, wow, this is not a good situation. But you've named so many of them, and any one of them would be a reason why I'd say I'm not sure if I want to go forward. Just to say it, I ran an outpatient clinic and I did disclosure, and 6 weeks to 8 weeks, that was it. Nobody waited more than 8 weeks because I know what spouses go through, and I didn't want you sitting there saying, well, I'll just wait another 6 months, put my life on hold until they or he or whatever decides to do this. So that's really not negotiable. And it should be, I believe, a therapist's responsibility to say to you, you will have this within this period of time. And then they work with your husband's therapist to figure out how and where and when and all of that. So none of this is going well. And, none of this is going well. So what I hear is you're thinking about leaving and you really want permission to leave. And that's what I hear is permission, because you have all these reasons, right? And any one of them, especially the verbal abuse, like that's just not acceptable. For me to hurt you and let you down and lie to you and then turn around and be abusive to you and blame you. So what you said is, I walking on shaky ground because I don't have any closure. I think you do. I don't think there is ever a period on the end of the sentence unless someone dies. So you have to decide. There isn't going to be a, well, he did this or well, he did that. So now I'm staying or now I'm going. It doesn't work that way. You have to add up and say, look at all the things you said. You didn't say one thing, by the way, that said, I'm looking forward to this, or this is going positively, or here's the good part, or I see him doing this, or there's not a word there. So what I do, and I think I'm pretty good at, is I really, really listen closely to what people say. And sometimes what they say, underneath it, there's a big, big message that they're not paying attention to because they're real caught up in the little pieces. And what I hear you saying is, I've exhausted my opportunities to get healing through the relationship. I have exhausted, in fact, I'm being punished by the person I care about because I simply want to know what's going on and how can we move forward. Every time I hear you saying that something simple comes up that we need to handle, not easy, but simple, like go to 12-step meetings or do disclosure or don't yell at me and call me names. These are the basics of a decent relationship. You get pushed away. So I can't give you permission to do what you already know is the right thing to do. Well, I think I lost Tammy, but you guys are here, right? I can't give you permission to do what you already know is probably the right thing for you. But I can say that there's nothing in this situation that sounds positive. I'll also say it doesn't have to be black and white about, like, you write this kind of like, um, end things, decision, feel confident. Um, why don't you separate? Why don't you get a legal separation? Why don't you talk to a lawyer about a legal situation? Why don't you talk to a therapist? You don't have to end something. You can simply say, we're going to do this differently until I feel safe. And by the way, I don't make recommendations to many clients that I see, no less people I don't know, but I'm frightened for you. I don't like the craziness that's going on. And yes, your heart is ruling, but I cannot say this more clearly. In fact, I have to type it. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are not facts. Let me see if I can type that in. Feelings are not facts. And when you are working with an addict, what you need is facts. You're feeling disappointed, hoping it would go better, missing the good times, wanting it to work. Those are all feelings and they're valid and they're legitimate, but they're not going to answer your challenge about what to do going forward. What will answer the challenge is what is being done. What is the behavior? And I don't hear anything that would tell me that this person is doing anything other than blaming you and asking you to bug off and give them a break. And so what I say, and I think I can just answer this here, is you're living with a very abusive person and you're asking yourself, what can I do better when you're not the problem? And any healthy person would make, I think if any healthy person were looking at this, they would make a different decision than you. I'm not saying you're not a healthy person, but you're in this situation. So you're the frog in the boiling water. And if one of us read this, because we're not in your relationship, we would probably say, as I would, get out and get out fast. But you're not the frog that got thrown in the boiling water and just jumped out because they said, oh my God, who would want to be in this hot water? You're the one who got the temperature turned up and turned up and turned up. And now you're in this incredibly hot, uncomfortable water, but you're not sure if you should get out. And if you don't get out, you're going to drown or get overheated. Or so what I can tell you is that I think it'd be really important for you to think about and plan out how to separate from this situation in little ways. You don't have to make it definitive. You're going to live there. I'm going to change the locks. I'm going to get a lawyer and figure out, it doesn't mean we're not going to be together, but I absolutely believe that you need to take some steps, that what you're looking for. In fact, let me just say this. What I hear you saying, and this is so important, is when is he going to do something that will make me feel hopeful or encouraged? When is he going to do something? You have to decide what is right for you and what works for you. Does this situation you describe work for you? Because I don't know what's going to happen in 3 months or 6 months in a year, but I know I wouldn't want to be in this situation. And I don't think any small thing or large thing that my partner could do at this point would change my mind. So I'm not saying get out of there forever or ending, but I do think that you need to take some steps for yourself. And I'll say this because we say it all the time, boundaries are not for someone else. I don't ask someone to live somewhere else because I want to punish them or because I want them to understand how important it is that they pay attention. Boundaries are for me. And so in your case, the boundary is I don't want to be yelled at. I don't want to be lied to. I don't want to wait for things that aren't going to happen and be told to shut up. So I'm going to set a boundary for myself. And as painful as that may be, you will feel very relieved, I promise you, when you have set some kind of boundary for yourself. And then it doesn't matter what he does. He has to get it together, and not because he wants to or doesn't, but because if he wants to move forward with you, he's going to have to make changes. Yeah. So that is my very long and very sad answer for you. Um, I'm going to, oops, did I lose that? Let me get back to your discussion. Sorry. I'm lacking Tammy, so I'm lost here. Okay. Um, so someone said, hi, thanks. I heard someone say recently, I think it was a moderator in one of the meetings that we do, that again are no cost. You can drop in anytime. They're over there at Section Relationship Healing. This person said, I heard a moderator say recently that formal disclosure is not recommended if you're not staying together. I need this to help decide whether to stay together. Can you please speak more about whether that process is appropriate? So I think it's a little bit more complex, but I agree. So there's a complexity and Rob agrees. So let me try this way. If you are separating, if you are divorcing, if you have decided that I'm done, or they've decided, or we're done, we do not do disclosure. Disclosure has one purpose, and that is to help the relationship gain intimacy and to put you on a level playing field where you both know everything and you're able to proceed together toward healing. If you are not going to stay together, then what is the point of disclosure? I do not want to give an angry spouse a list of things that I have done that they can take to their lawyer. I don't want to be the therapist to encourage that. And I understand, and I say to you spouses, absolutely, you want to know, you have the right to know, it's important you know, but if you're not staying in the relationship, it isn't required. However, I understand that you're trying to decide whether or not to stay in the relationship, and you can't decide until you get disclosure. So this is a tough one. What I would say to you is that, and this is, I think, the best way to do it, is say, I'm willing to put aside whether we're going to stay together or not based on disclosure. I'm going to decide that we're going to stay together or work things out or leave the door open for 6 months post disclosure or 3 months. In other words, rather than making disclosure the key to whether you stay together or you don't stay together, put your relationship in a safe harbor. Put it in a place, because you're going to be angry, you're going to be hurt, you're going to be furious. Maybe you won't want to stay together, but maybe a few months later, you're not going to feel that way. So what we say is, if you are wanting to work this out on any level, then put the relationship in a safe harbor where you don't have to make those kinds of big decisions at disclosure or right after disclosure. It's a hugely emotional time, but say we will decide to stay together or not after we've spent a few months working through this. Me on my own, him or her on my own, us together. And if in 90 days we're both still in that place, then maybe we won't be together. But I really discourage making disclosure the key to whether I stay or not, because disclosure is a very emotional experience, and how you feel at the time of disclosure may be very different than how you feel after that, and you've worked on things and things are looking better or worse. So Tammy, can you see that question? Or do you want me to? Oh, I'll say, yeah,
I
I
can't
answered.
see any of them because I
Oh, right,
got
because
kicked
they're all
out. So,
gone. Right.
so now you're going to
Okay.
have to do what I do. If you hit in the
I
answer
got
to
it.
move
I
them
think I
to,
got it.
yeah, thank you. And then I should be able to see them. So I
As
apologize,
they come
everybody.
through.
I had a plan. So Now
Tammy,
I can see it.
you're amazing, and you don't need to
Well,
apologize for
thank you.
anything.
So,
Yeah, and
well,
you're
thank
not
you.
responsible for your Wi-Fi. You just can't stick your finger in it and make it work better. So thank you
I
for
know, especially
trying.
when you're traveling. So, okay. So this question is, hi, thanks. I heard a moderator say recently
No,
that formal disclosure.
that one
Oh,
I
you answered
answered.
that one.
So
Okay.
I'm going
Then
to
go to
give you
the,
the
yeah,
next
you have
one.
to move the next.
Okay,
Thank you.
now you
Okay.
have it.
Okay. Married 39 years. D-Day was 4 years ago. I started raging soon after discovery. Then the raging calmed down, and then there was a little more time between rages. But I still feel that I need to rage probably once every few months. My question is, what do I do when I feel these rages coming on? We are both retired and enjoying being together. We went to a CSAT for 2 years and each got to our own therapist. I also go to the Old Ladies Posse. Yay. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Group and have worked on myself, but these rages still raise their ugly head. I I think I've shared on this before. I used to have it. It was like I named it the white hot rage, and it was awful, and I hated it. And like I just had to like stay away from everyone, so I didn't have to make a whole bunch of amends. So I completely get it. The Old Lady Posse is a drop-in group on our sexandrelationshiphealing.com. They named it, we didn't, and it's not all people of a certain age. It really has been more people, but it's people that are looking for accountability and things. But I really appreciate you sharing, sharing that rage. So Dr. Rob, did you want to start, or do you want me to just throw in a few things?
Well, why don't you go ahead? You started, and then I'll jump in.
Okay. Okay. So some things that I did for me was what I finally figured out, thank you, therapist, um, uh, and Troy Love, honestly, but yeah, there was old wounds that were getting poked, and having the language of being able to identify what was getting poked. But I also did some serious work with my therapist, including, she said, how old do you feel? I did, this is me and this is not you, but it may help. So, and I realized that there was this little girl in me that was like feeling so vulnerable. And so I would rage out because I was trying to protect her. And so what I ended up doing was I did some trauma work. EMDR did a ton of help for me. Honestly, one session with her doing this, I have not experienced that. And that was years ago. So like it was so helpful for that specific thing. It doesn't, get rid of everything, but that helped. But I really had to own that, she said to me, what would you do? What would you say to that? It was an 8-year-old, but what would you say? And I would say, I would come up alongside her and I would tell her it's going to be okay. And I would parent myself. Hugely beneficial for me. But for me, the key was I could feel it coming on, and I just had to step away. I had to know this was happening and step away, because otherwise there's this whole cycle of raging out and everything. But if I just went, I need to go calm down, mindfulness, prayer and meditation, go for a walk, do something to simmer down in the moment. But that was, I'm not kidding. I have not experienced that. And that was a periodic thing for me, that I have not experienced that in the years since I did those specific things. So if that's helpful, great.
Well, I think Tammy is right on target with this idea of self-soothing or self-regulation. She did it, as she said, by kind of finding that vulnerable part in herself and saying, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to make it okay. We're going to be okay together. You're not alone, because it's not all of you that's raging. There's a party that's saying, I don't want to be doing this, but then you're doing it anyway. So what we use the word dysregulated, that someone who is in this situation has a hard time, they're up and down and up and down. They kind of have a hard time maintaining that through line of calm. And I also agree with Tammy. What EMDR is it sounds wacky, but it's a particular form of therapy that I never believed in until I read all the research. And what they do is they target a particular, you have to have something specific, like a memory of something, or in this case, when you rage, and they will work with you just specifically around that target. And what it does is it doesn't take out what's happening, but it tones down the intensity. So for example, with people who have trauma, they don't forget what happened to them, but it doesn't become shaking, overwhelmed. They can kind of look at it and say, yeah, that was awful. So finding a way to step back from the anger is something you need support for. I think Tammy is recommending, some kind of professional can help you because this is your issue. Because it sounds like, I mean, it's been 4 years and it sounds like things are going well and you're enjoying each other and you both went to therapy and you have your own therapist and you're going to groups. So you're doing all the right stuff, but there is a little girl in there who's very, very sad. And the reason I say sad is I want to, again, validate what Tammy said, which is, as a therapist, I know that anger is a defense, meaning I put like humor is defense. When I'm uncomfortable, I make a joke. That's what I do. I don't really talk about being uncomfortable necessarily, but I do make that joke and I make everyone focus on the joke and the fun, and then I don't have to deal with my feelings. Some people get angry, and that's because what's underneath that is feeling insecure and sad and vulnerable. And it's so much more empowering to get angry rather than it is to sit in that pain and loss and sadness. So I agree with this whole process, which is I think you might get some help turning down the volume on the feelings, which will take a professional, and then being able to know when this is coming up and begin to address it in a way that doesn't come out like that. Because part of it, I also think, is kind of like addiction. When do I see this coming? Okay, I notice I'm tapping my fingers on the desk and I'm starting to get like this. Okay, but I can see that. What do I do? It means I take a walk. It means I take a breath. It means I get out of this conversation. So part of the therapies in this situation is learning when you're on the way to that, because once you got that adrenaline flowing and you're throwing rocks, it's really hard to come down. But if you can see it coming and learn how to calm yourself down, which is just a real something you can learn about, it's educational. I think it will go better. So the questions you're asking are very understandable. And I think you've now found something new that you can work on so that you can be a better person and so that you guys will get along better. By the way, there's nothing wrong with getting really angry, but when I rage, then I don't like myself. Then I don't like what I did or how I've acted. And that's not what I want to do, is end up at the short end of the stick of not even being able to have my feelings validated because I look like such a crazy person. So anyway, Tam, is there anything you want to add, or maybe we should just move on?
Well, the only other thing, yeah, if you move the next one, but the only other thing is like I was able to use that visualization of going back to my 8-year-old and nurturing her. I've used that at other times. So it wasn't like one and done and now it's magically all better. It was like, oh, this is getting poked. Oh, I need to nurture. And man, it really was transformative for me. So hopefully that helps. Can you move the next one to, oh, you
They're
did.
all in your account, and I gave
Oh,
them all
you're
to
so
you.
wonderful. Okay, thank you. I started seeing an APSAT and my husband a CSAT by force by me. So that wasn't, he went willingly. I told him he has until the end of the year to work a program and me see a change followed by therapeutic disclosure and polygraph. He's been resistant, but then showing up some commitment, but now he's feeling it's too much and thinks I'll leave anyway. I hear this often. So not sure it's worth it. I feel he just doesn't want to go through and see it actually, and to see if I'll actually leave if he doesn't go through with the process and avoiding the therapeutic disclosure, because I think there's things he did and knows I won't stay if it comes out. He's done things he's been adamant he hasn't done. This has been a long, drawn out process, and I think I'm ready to just leave. I think this is common, but just need confirmation.
So I want to say to both of you, I believe you're both women. If you have a husband, you are, and someone who spoke before. And I mean this in the most sincere way. This is why we run a treatment center. When a relationship is at a crisis, that is a long-term relationship, and maybe you got kiddos, you got friends and family and home, and when you've been together a while and you really don't want to take that step, but you feel like that they're dragging their feet, they are I can never say that word, uh, confusing things, when they're trying to, throw dust in your eyes and, it's making you
Obfuscating,
crazy. Thank you. Can you say one word? Obfuscating. I can't, you said that.
obfuscating,
Right.
obfuscating. It's
It
all
kind of
good.
means
Keep going.
making things difficult for you to see clearly. Um, so now I lost my thread. Sorry. So let me go back to this is why we run treatment, because there are people who are at the end of their rope who are saying this relationship is going to end, or I don't know, I feel like I've done everything I can and I'm not being heard, or I don't want to have to leave, but I can't stay here, it's too harmful, or I'm getting yelled at all the time. This is what we do treatment for, is we work with these men exactly to come to terms with, are they going to stand up and do the work they need to do, or are they not? And I wrote a book about this called Out of the Doghouse, a relationship saving guide for men caught cheating. We teach a course in it. And it is really about helping men understand what a woman goes through when she's been betrayed and what the responsibilities he now has to heal the relationship. And throughout the book, I say, listen, you don't want to heal the relationship, you don't have to do any of this hard stuff. But if you do, you've got to really get in there and work. So, number one, honestly, if you have the resources, send them to me. I promise, move this person along. My team will tell you I'm pretty good at that. The other thing is that I just want to say to all of you spouses, this is a really important thing. Please do not threaten to leave. And I'm not saying this is this person. Do not threaten to leave unless you're going to. Because once you say, I'm leaving if you don't do this, or I'm leaving if you do this, and if we do that or don't do it, and you don't leave, we have learned a lesson, which is I can get away with my stuff and she or he's just going to say that, but they're not going to follow through. And then you lose authority. Then I know I can manipulate you because you're not going to follow through on that anyway. So you have said you're going to leave if these things don't happen. I maybe this is helpful, maybe this isn't, but you have to. Because if you don't, you're telling him that he can just do whatever the F he wants, and you're just going to look the other way and make threats that you're not going to follow through on. So I don't know what he's going to do or not. I think that you have every right to say what you're going to do and how you're going to take care of yourself if you don't get where you need to get. Does he, last thing, is he waiting to see if you leave anyway? I think it more goes like this. I don't think the guys, yeah, I don't think they believe you. And not only that, I don't think they understand how important the relationship is to them until they see themselves facing that back, walking out the door. And I'm sorry to say that, but I can look at you and look at you and look at you and pay no attention to you and avoid you and have sex with all these other people. And I'll blame you. You're too heavy and you're not paying attention to me and you're getting old and it's all your fault. But if you move 1 inch away from me, I'm going to say, well, wait a minute, where are you going? And all of a sudden you're going to become really important to me. And it's not because there wasn't a connection all along. It's because addicts choose to avoid looking at that connection. I cannot love you and hurt you at the same time. So if I push you aside, I devalue you, I blame you, I dismiss you, it's a lot easier for me to go act out. But what I don't think is you would actually move 1 inch away from me. And when you do, all of a sudden it's like, I was teaching the staff today. I did a training and you did one after me. I heard it went really well. Tammy, thank you. Um, but one of the things that came up was this issue, which is about threats and will someone follow through on what they say they're going to do? And you have to make a decision how you want to live your life. Um, if you do what you say you're going to do, then this person will make a decision. If they want to be with you, that's why I wrote the Doghouse book. If then there are certain things that he's going to have to do. He's going to have to work a program. He's going to have to go through disclosure. He's going to have to take a polygraph because otherwise he's not going to have you. And if he says, I don't care, well, then he's not going to have you. And then you have your answer, which is this person is not invested in me. But if he turns around and says, oh my God, you're actually going to leave, and now you got an apartment and I have to go live in it, and then you'll know. Then if he says, I'm going to get to work, I didn't really realize how important, I didn't take you so seriously. One more thing. In treatment, and I've said this to you guys before, we take letters from the spouses saying what you've been through and what's been going on. And what you've been through, whether it's the yelling or the cheating we ask you to tell us that so we can bring your voice into the treatment center. We want to hear what you've been through. And almost every man I work with will say, I've heard all that before, meaning you've said these things a dozen times. But the thing is, when that message doesn't come out of your mouth and it comes out of my mouth or appear, then it's a whole different story. Then I have a guy who's sitting in a room full of people and is hearing how he treated his wife. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I did that. And then the other guys in the group are saying, oh my God, I did that too. And they're crying, and having your voice in there is incredibly helpful. And one more thing. And when I read these letters, and the guys say, I've heard that from my wife a million times, but I never really heard it until you said it. My answer to them is, why weren't you listening? Because it's not like you guys aren't telling us what you need and what you want. We are not listening. We're used to running the show. We're used to getting away with stuff. We're used to controlling the situation. And in our minds, we still think I have control until you do something that is for yourself, like move us out. And then it's like, oh, wait, I don't have control. I can't manipulate this. And then sometimes we'll wake up and sometimes we won't. That was a long answer, Tammy. What do you think? Oh, you're probably
That was
better.
great. And I caught the end of your when I came back on, and you were talking about don't threaten to leave unless
You're
you're
going
going to,
to.
but it was also, yeah, with the disclosure, it's like I tell guys, don't do the disclosure unless you're going to be truthful, because the thing that you hide, it always comes out and it makes it worse. It just makes it worse. But what I also am wondering about with this particular case is, you say he knows if he tells me this that he's been lying about, I'm going to leave. And I'm like, if you really so I would ask you to look in your heart, because honestly, if that is true, and it is totally a deal breaker, I mean, then, but many people go, okay, now I've heard the worst, you already know it's bad. You already know it's bad. He's a broken person. Can you go, that was not good, but we are going to move forward in a different way. We're going to work on having honesty and truthfulness. Maybe you can, because I've had a lot of partners who thought, if I hear this, I'm out of here. And then they didn't. So then it goes back to Dr. Rob saying, don't say you're leaving if you're not really going to leave, because they will. I always said, if your boundaries and wall is a sieve and they can keep navigating through it, it doesn't have any boundaries. Are for your protection. It's for your safety, your physical, emotional, spiritual, financial safety, not to be punitive and go, you've been bad and you've hurt me. It's like, no, for my sake, I value myself enough. So this is what I need for me to live in this world. And, so a different focus for it. And but whatever you need to do to take care of you is what, I encourage you to do. So, but think about it. If you hear the absolute worst, that thing that you think you're going to hear, can you get past it? I don't know. Some do,
Well,
some don't. And it's all okay. So,
and I want to add one thing, Tammy, because that's really helpful to what we're talking about is at the addict's end, it's almost funny because we think, okay, I'm gonna tell them everything except this thing. Like that's the thing that they're gonna leave over. I'll say all these things, but not that one. And the truth is, it isn't really any one thing, it's the whole thing. But we've made up in our heads whatever we think is the worst thing, that's the thing we're gonna keep secret. And like Tammy had said, it's gonna get found out anyway. So it's best to put it all on the table. And it's so typically the thing that we think is going to upset you the most isn't even the thing that upsets you the most. So, yeah, I do agree with Tammy, though. You need to decide, if you hear the worst of the worst, are you going to stay? Because maybe your husband's right. If I tell you these things, you're going to leave. And if that's true, then I think that's something you really need to consider before you push this process forward. So I think we got that one, Tammy.
okay. Hello, Dr. Rob. I'm a straight porn addict and chemsec addict, sober from chemsex 3 years. Yay. And still working on my recovery. Yay. With 12-step groups and support groups. I have been diagnosed with fertility issues, low sperm count, even though my hormones are normal. Have you seen addicts with porn and sex addiction suffering from fertility issues, low testosterone issues, either due to addiction or poor lifestyle because of addiction? I have a urologist appointment scheduled for diagnosis, and it sucks to my spouse, or sucks that my spouse is frustrated because of this issue, and we both want to have a family.
Well, I can understand the question, because Lord knows when you do all kinds of things sexually, you think, well, what's going on down there? But what I've heard people struggle with is things like not getting erections, not being able to be aroused, struggle to be sexual with my partner, even though I can have sex with a million people out there. But I don't think I've ever heard that. And I've actually heard that the testosterone production can wane in some people, and you need to have that checked out. But testosterone production has nothing to do with your fertility. Testosterone production has to do with your arousal. Will you get aroused, with your being assertive, with your sleep patterns? Hormones do a whole bunch of things, but they don't create more sperm. And so, you might have a motility issue, which means your sperm don't swim very well. You might have a count issue, which means you don't have enough sperm. You might have weak sperm that just can't break through that egg and wall. So I think that I would not take responsibility for this as, you can take responsibility for lots of ways you've harmed and broken, but this feels like a body thing. And I think you should see a urologist or whoever. But I don't think this is about having lots of sex. This is something, you have unhappy sperm. But listen, There are lots of procedures that can be done, if you're comfortable with that in vitro, and they can insert your sperm into the egg and they can make it happen whether there's fluid in there or not. So I would not be so worried about whether my past behavior has caused this. I'd be more interested in, what are the ways that we can work with this to have a child if that's what we want to have. But I have never heard, maybe Tammy has, that sperm production has been affected by sex addiction or compulsive masturbation, any of it. Getting aroused, getting erections, when we become normed to intensity, yes. But the actual sperm, the physical part of that, I don't think that's connected.
No,
Tammy?
and too many people without addiction struggle with that. So to me, I think this is
Right.
just, it's
It's genetic.
it's a fertility issue is a fertility issue. So, and unfortunately you had an addiction. And you know what? I'm grateful for my addiction. Like, it taught me how to live right, but I am thrilled that you're in recovery. You want to have a family. You can be an amazing parent because you're in recovery. So do the fertility testing, talk to your urologist, take the guilt of addiction off the table. Just go, I'm going to do the fertility stuff. So, and
I
I
want
hope you write back in a certain amount of time and go, guess what? We're expecting. That'd be
or send
fabulous.
us pictures. We love kids.
Yes.
Sometimes when people go through treatment and they've saved a relationship with the younger couples, Tammy and I will get a note like a year and a half later. Thank you. Thank you for treatment. We've worked this out, and here's our child we talked about having. A lot of the spouses I work with saying, I don't feel safe enough with you to have a child. Very sad. I would love you. I'd love to have a child. It was always my goal, but I don't know what you're going to do or who you're going to do it with, and I don't want to have a child in those circumstances. So part of what makes me joyful in doing treatment is when people turn around and there's the trust to raise a family, which is a beautiful thing. I do want to say one more thing about this is I don't know, and maybe Dr. Fawcett knows, the effect of meth or whatever drug you were doing.
Mhm.
I don't know the effect of that on sperm motility and sperm. The sex addiction I know does not relate to testosterone issues, but I don't know what kind of drugs you were doing or how often you did them or how those have affected your body. And all I can say to you about that is please, please, please tell your doctor, this is what I was using. This is how much I was using. This is when I stopped, because it may well be that there's some connection there. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor. So I don't know, but I'm glad I caught that because it is chemsex, and
Yes.
the chem part
Yeah.
could affect you, and I don't know in what way, but hopefully a
And,
physician will.
and yeah, and your physician needs to have all the information so that they can give you the best help and care possible. So like withholding information doesn't really help. So anyway, okay, go ahead. Next one. Okay, my
Well, I just
husband
want to
is,
say something
oh,
about
go
what you
ahead.
just said, which is please, your doctor, I know we're ashamed of things, we're embarrassed about things, we feel bad about things, we don't want to tell anyone things. Tell your doctor everything. They don't care. They watch bodies get taken apart. They look at parts in certain ways that I don't even want to know they're there. But these people, even if they're not the warmest and fuzziest, they have heard, you can tell me anything about sex. I've heard it all. There's not much that would surprise me. Physicians are there to hear everything. And if you are shamed and hiding, by the way, there is one other thing I didn't think of. If you had STDs, that may have affected you. Sperm can
Mm,
be affected by, and I don't know which. I think syphilis can. I think HPV can. So it may also be that you have to say, had sex with 1,000 people, and I may have had an STD along the way, or whatever it is. But whatever it is that you're ashamed about, tell your doctor because you're not going to get where you want to unless you do. So, little plug for that.
yeah, very valid point. So okay, my husband is supposed to be getting ready for therapeutic disclosure. It must be disclosure night, but it has been recommended to be in recovery at least 90 days, no porn, masturbation, sex, etc., before doing a polygraph. He just told me he slept with porn, says it's because he wants me so bad, but can't have me, and doesn't know if he can stay sober that long. Can you see the drama? If he can't even be sober 90 days, what's the purpose to stay and try to do a therapeutic disclosure with a
Oh,
polygraph?
Tammy, you're so mean.
I know I mean, but oh my god, yeah. So this feels like I'm gonna consistently I slip because I don't want to do disclosure. It feels like I'm gonna lay all this sweet vomit on you, like, oh, I just love you so much. I can't live without you. I can't, so to me there's so much. Oh, you put it in the answer. Okay, I'm following. But yeah, it's one of those where um Yeah, manipulation, 100%. And if you've been on any of these before, you've heard, I've done a lot of research on polygraphs. So you guys all get to choose. I am so not a fan. There's so much that can go wrong, but you all get to choose. The people that do polygraphs are going to tell you that they're going to fix everything, and you're going to know. But and so you get to choose. But what I agree with Dr. Rob, all caps manipulation, and I'd put 3 exclamation points on it. So, but yeah, he's unfortunately does not seem ready for that. But like Dr. Rob said earlier, oh, I think I just froze.
I'm right here. Did I lose you?
Go ahead.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure.
My Wi-Fi is unstable again.
Okay, but
I
you're
agree
stable,
with you.
Tammy. That's what matters.
Manipulation.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a setup, right? As Tammy said, because now every time he slips, he can put off disclosure. So it's a perfect, what is it? It's a perfect circular argument, which is I want to get well and I want to do this. Oops, I'm not well enough to do it. Or, you'll never get anywhere. So here's
But I
my
want
suggestion. I would say to the therapist, I would say, because I don't personally, I have never heard before that they have to be sober, recover 90 days before they do. I've just never heard that. I think people do slip and they can still do a polygraph the next day because as long as they say, and I had a slip yesterday. So I don't know about all that. I've never heard of all that. In fact, I just want to know, did you hear that from the therapist? Or did your spouse just
Oh,
say that your therapist said it? Because I don't know if you know this, but we will, well, I don't anymore, but an addict will come to you and say, oh, well, my therapist said that's not a good idea. And of course, you're like, oh, well, I guess if their therapist said it, we're lying. So it might be useful to sit and say, to call your spouse's therapist and say, do you mind if I sit on a session, just give my feedback? Or can I send you a text or a note or something? I don't want to intrude, but there's something I'm concerned about. I have never heard slips being something that impedes going forward with disclosure and even a polygraph. I think that's more putting it off. And I'm not even sure that's true because I don't know if the therapist actually said that. So, and where's the last part of the question? If he can't be sober 90 days, what's the purpose to stay in doing a therapeutic disclosure with a polygraph? How about this? Do it whether he's sober or not. I vote for that. Tammy?
yeah. Well, and I have said to people, sobriety is helpful because otherwise you just keep doing these disclosures, and we hear about the people that are on their 4th or 9th disclosure. So there should be a foundation, but my biggest issue is the manipulation of like, oh, I want you so much. What a deflection of like, I mean, it's just so manipulative on that
Gag
level.
me with a spoon.
I know, like sweet words, it's actions. What are your actions showing me right now? Not, I mean, addicts, like you said, we lie, we, manipulate, we gaslight, we blame shift, we do all kinds of terrible things because we don't want to hold the mirror up to ourselves. I mean, I don't want to hold this up. I'd rather go, you're so wonderful. So, and you are wonderful, no doubt, but like still,
So I want to add to this, just looking at the other side, which is, was he telling you about his acting out when it was happening? Because all of a sudden it seems really important to tell you about using porn when disclosure is coming. But was he honest all those other times? Why is he telling you now? Like, why are you hearing this now? Unless it gives him an opportunity to push the whole thing off. The other thing is, as Tammy said, you may be beautiful, you may be wonderful. I'm sure you are, but this is bullshit. This is just because didn't he want you so badly and weren't you so important that he didn't want to be with other people or act out with porn? How come all of a sudden, oh, I know, because he's not having sex. You're the only hole in town. Excuse my language, but if he can't have sex with other people, then he can masturbate or idealize you, and then you're going to be used for sex. So I think you need to hold on to your boundaries. I would not wait forever. I would leave a message with the therapist. And I would say to him, I don't care if you're sober or not. I want to hear what's going on. And, maybe I would even say, maybe you'll do another disclosure in 6 months. I hope that's not true. But up until now, I want to know what's going on. You're in the driver's seat here. And by the way, spouses, you're all in the driver's seat here. If we want to be with you, we have to listen. We have to pay attention. We have to follow through. I think that we're so used to being able to manipulate you. And listen, if we live with you together for 8 years or 25, I know exactly what buttons to push to get you over here, over there, or to look in that direction. You guys, I think trusting your own gut is the best thing you can do. And you already know the answer to this question, which is you're being manipulated. You were beautiful 6 weeks ago or 6 years ago, and you still are. So it's not about you. He's looking for an out or an in. And this has gone sideways in a big way. And I wouldn't believe any of it.
Okay.
I
Next
hope he's not
question.
here. He'll probably get mad at me. I hear that sometimes. I was on with my spouse and you said all these things. I'm like, oh, but truth is truth,
Yeah, but and so that's a good point. We are only hearing one sliver of it. You do expert consultations for two people. If you're in a relationship, it's for the two of them. You are listening to all sides of this to navigate and help them identify what the issues are for them and how to move forward. So we do listen, but this is just snippets. We are answering from what we read. We know that there's way more. That's why this is like, you want the right help. This is the cancer stuff. This is not your general practitioner. You want the right help to work on this stuff. So, okay,
and I want to
next
just
question.
say
Go ahead.
something about what you said, Tammy, which is I want to
Mhm.
explain the consultations is that I sit right here online and spend 2 hours most often with a couple. And what I'm trying to do is take 30 years of experience and ask all the right questions and listen to everything, and then come up with a treatment plan or next steps for both of you together, for you separately. And again, for some reason, some of the addicts are better able to hear me than they are you. And when I hear your whole story, and then I can say online to your spouse, what's your point of view? Believe me, they move. And so I will say for those who do consultation, come to consultations, an addict who's being honest and clear and working hard will have no problems with me. But someone who is denying and avoiding and manipulating you, and I'm very good at challenging that, and then saying what to do about it. So that's why we do the consultations, and I actually like doing them because I really get to create clarity. In fact, I've worked with couples in this episode who said, "We've been to so many people just trying to figure out this, or just trying to get that answered, and you did it in 2 hours." I have a lot of
Mhm.
experience. I've seen a lot of, BS walks and all of that. So I really enjoy doing those. And just to say, reach
Yeah,
out to Tammy if you want to
yeah,
set one up.
yeah. And sometimes there are people that are new to this process and overwhelmed and not even knowing what to do. Sometimes it's couples that have been working at this for a while and they're just stuck. And so you helping them go, okay, here's where you are right now, and here's a path for moving forward, and giving specific resources for that. So okay. Next question. It's in the open, and I can track those now. So I'm having trouble finishing the 9-step amends with my wife. My wife has read some of my work in progress and says that it all sounds like I'm saying sorry and asking her to forget. While I have definitely listed things for accountability, passwords for emails, phone, and online bank accounts open, location tracking on phone, and I'm trying to avoid her triggers as much as I am able. I myself am having trouble coming up with anything that will make up for what I've done. I've listed living amends, but that sounds to her like I should be doing for myself, and there's nothing there for her. I understand how amends are supposed to right the wrongs I've done, but I have no idea what I can possibly do that will right all the years of infidelity, dishonesty, entitlement, selfishness, and neglect I've put her through.
I think you need to start with this one, Tammy.
Well, so first of all, I'm sorry she's been reading your draft. I would highly recommend you put it in a different place and work with your qualified professional on this, and your peer group and your sponsor and all of your, to that. But
Resources.
what you said is, yeah. I've listed living amends. I mean, for the people closest to us, sorry isn't enough. And you're right. You can't make up for all the years. Now, Dr. Rob has shared, like, somebody who uses their kids' college fund and will work an extra job and make restitution. There are some things that you can do that will reset that balance that particular thing. But it is learning to be a different person. It is living amends, because sorry is what we did or we didn't do in addiction. So and just remember that betrayed partners are months behind, like when you start. And if you start and you are tracking and you are working on becoming a trustworthy person of integrity, they have all, they've had discovery. They are going, oh my gosh, has everything been a lie? So they're going to be, 18 months behind you ish. And that's just a generalization, but so there's always, there's always a lag because they just got hit by a Mack truck. So part of it is just where your relationship is. You're not going to be, there's a roller coaster park, and sometimes the roller coasters were like, they were twin roller coasters, and sometimes they'd be right next to each other and sometimes they weren't. And that's what you guys are on. You guys are kind of on that, and, but if you're still moving in the same direction forward, that's a good thing. I would encourage you not to fall into shame and just, I've shared this with other addicts. I'm sorry that my past behavior has been so hurtful for you. And it's going to sound trite to partners, but I'm sorry that my past behavior has been so hurtful for you. I am working today to be a person that doesn't do that to you again, that I can be a different person, and but you can't magically erase it. You can't make up for everything, but it's living a different way. And the more action partners see, the more likely they are to, and as long as they're doing, getting the support for themselves, that makes a difference too. But it's living amends. I mean, the people closest to me, it was all living amends. It wasn't, the other people that weren't as close, they could get an I'm sorry for this specific thing. But, I had boatloads of stuff and I was in my early 20s. I was busy.
Let's, yes, I've heard. I did write you a note. And Tammy, can you read? I don't think I can read what I wrote. So can you read it and then I'll answer more about the question.
Did you put it in answered? Okay.
Yeah, I put an answer.
Out of the Doghouse, there is a book, there is a course we teach. So the work group is Out of the Doghouse for Men Who Have Been Caught Cheating. It's 6 weeks, live facilitated. It really does make a difference. Seriously, you need help with empathy, not just doing it right, but your tone, your approach. Oh, that's good. Not your tone, your approach is as important as what you say. And like, I'm sorry, get over it, doesn't help. So
I didn't mean
great,
it.
but they
Please
are
forgive me. I tried my
yeah,
best.
yeah.
And I didn't know I was an
How
addict. And
long are you going to do this? I'm, look at all these that I'm doing for you. Doesn't work. So
one of the things about the 9th step is that we work, well, I don't know. It's extremely important to understand why you are making this amends. And part of
yes.
it, and a part of where we work with sponsors is everything, is you have to understand what your motivation is. If my motivation of doing this amends is for that person to forgive me or feel better about our relationship, then you got it wrong. And I think that's what's being picked up on here. The point of doing the 9th step is to clear your soul and your soul, and to let the other person know that you know the harm you've caused and that you can see it, and that it's something you're going to have to work toward healing, toward forgiveness, toward. But it isn't this, let me tell you this so that you can understand how hard it's been for me, and then you can forgive me. So what I wonder about is, and I think, and that's why I recommended Doghouse, is it feels like there's a tone underneath this, she's picking up on something which isn't, which sounds like is not the purpose of amends, to get this person to feel better about you. That's why we said we have to be really clear about our motivation for amends. And if my motivation for amends is to get you to feel better about me and work things out, you may never get together, you may never work it out, but you have to clear your soul and take responsibility for your behavior. If anything, the amends is about responsibility taking, I think. So I would guess you are saying I'm sorry, and I guess you are asking her forget, because I don't think she's, listen, doing an amends. If I were doing amends, I don't think that whoever I was giving it to would come to that conclusion. It'd be more like other things, but not that. So maybe you're trying too hard, and maybe you're trying too hard because you have an outcome in mind that you want to, or a result in mind that you want to come from this process. And I really think, I know Tammy would agree, but I think the 9th step is about having no expectations of the other person
Yes.
whatsoever.
They do not have to accept it. It is
Right.
absolutely, I'm doing this because it's my integrity. The other thing is, since she's read your draft, ask for input. Say, what is it, what is it you're looking for, instead of you trying to guess? I mean, because I really think, peers and sponsors, but she's read it. So ask for her input. Say, what is it what do you perceive? And I'll take that to my therapist and sponsor and your peer group and get some input and feedback. But I do love your suggestion, Dr. Rob, about the Out of the Doghouse too.
Well, let me say one more thing is that, sometimes, well, just this is this tone again in here. I have no idea what I could possibly do that will right all the years of infidelity, dishonesty, entitlement, selfishness. There's nothing you can do to right all of that. You can only keep your side of the street clean. She may hate you the rest of your life, and you may have ruined her life, and she may never, ever forgive you. But that's not why you do this. And it does feel like there's this kind of little boy who's like, Mommy, please forgive me, and I'll tell you when I stole the cookies out of the jar, and then you won't be mad at me anymore. You know, you're not 7. And this isn't to get her to forgive you. This is so you can be at peace with yourself and your higher power. Okay. Got that
Okay.
one.
Next question. Since discovery and disclosure, my husband has had medical issues and has not fully embraced recovery. These issues are not life-threatening. He is using these issues to get me to put down my boundaries and request to attend 12-step in therapy. I feel it's a lot of denial and control as evolved. He would like me to forget all the acting out and just get on with our life. All addicts do. I'm
Who
sorry.
wouldn't?
I feel both the medical and the recovery are equally important. I need validation. He is not acting out now, but this has been 3 years. Any ideas? I feel he is still trying to control me. We have been married for 45 years, and I don't want my whole life to change. I think he needs to work on his medical issues in our marriage. Need some other ideas. Thank you.
Tammy, you want to
Well,
start? And we've all had spouses who have
I'm
medical issues. So
yes. So it's one of those things where it's not an excuse. In fact, like I've shared this before, but COVID was really hard for me. You know what I leaned more into? My recovery, because the same things that I learned early in recovery
right.
were the same things that kept my sanity. So the medical issues, there's fear, there's uncertainty, there's all of this other stuff. The principles that are set down in the program are guides to progress. It's one of
In
those things
every
where
area of your
if he
life.
in every area, yeah. So
Mhm.
this is actually, him leaning more into the support from peers,
Mhm.
working on his program, cleaning up the wreckage of his past. He will find freedom. I, I think he would do best by leaning more, like adding more to his program than rather than less.
Well, and everything you said in here is your reality. His medical issues are not life-threatening. He's using them to get me to put down my needs. I feel like there's denial and control. He'd like me to forget it all. I need validation. It's been 3 years. I still feel controlled. There isn't much here that sounds very positive about how he. So the medical seems the least of it. I mean, in this story, I'm worried about you being controlled, not validated, manipulated. Him, and I would guess,
Stuck.
I'm so sorry that he is using this. Absolutely. Oh well, my heart, I can't really tell you. Listen, if somebody has had issues, did you ever have medical issues before and someone chose that they had to be honest and dishonest and lie and keep secrets and because they have medical issues? So I think you're absolutely right to question all of this. And but the sentence at the end, I don't want my whole life to change. I think your whole life has already changed because you have all this information and now you know this person is very different than you ever thought they were. And as much as you would not like life to change, and believe me, I hate change, every addict hates change, but it already has changed. And whether he works on his medical issue or not, you're gonna put your marriage first, and you're gonna put your relationship first, and it's not life threatening. So he can do both at the same time. And to say he can't is, in my mind, I'm so worried about my medical issue. I don't want to worry about our marriage too. Well, you didn't worry about you weren't worried when you're out seeing sex workers and looking a lot of porn. So, and believe me, if he could act out, he would, whether he has medical issues or not. Trust me. So, yeah, I think you get to say what you need and have those needs met. And I would not be pointed in the other direction. Look, if he's dying, okay, you got an excuse. But other than that, he has to stand up and be a man. And by the way, every single guy in this that we're responding to needs to be out of the doghouse, needs to read it. You guys do not have empathy for your spouses. You don't understand what they're going through. You need to get taught. Or as they said, if you want to come see me in treatment, I will be glad to show you how you've not been supporting your spouse and you've been destroying your relationship and blaming them for it. These are the very issues that addiction is all about. And you're still being manipulated and lied to in denial. He's still in his addiction, whether he's acting out or not. because recovery is not just about stopping the behavior. It's about working on who you are and becoming a better person. And I don't hear the better person part here. I just hear how miserable you're being made and how the fingers being pointed in that direction. Look over here, I'm not well. So you know, anyway, I think it's a bunch of BS, and I think you're absolutely right. Do you want to take one
And
more,
I just
Tammy?
want to tag on.
We
Well,
should probably
and
go.
yeah, I want to tag onto this one though too. Well, it's okay, but you know, I was like, I don't want my whole life to change, and I'm like, I do want your life to change. I want you to find joy and support in, you know. So if he may choose never to change, you know, you know, you've been married 45 years. But you setting healthy boundaries is for your physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual safety. So he can have his medical issues. That does not automatically mean you have to be caretaker to him. You know, like if he's not willing to step up into the relationship space, you know, I mean, it sounds harsh, but at some point, what do you need to do to take care of you? And it isn't just taking care of him. So I do hope that aspects of your life change, and that, you know, you can move forward with joy and support and peace in certain, you know, if this is still chaotic, is there some place that you can call your own to get help and support? So, okay.
I have
So
one more
one
that I'd
more, or do you need
like
to
to
go?
answer.
Okay. Oh, please.
And I
Yeah.
want to
Okay.
answer this particular one. As the sex addict, we have been together, I assume it's me and a partner, have been together since we were 15 and married for almost 28 years. And as a chronic liar, most of my life, okay, due to childhood trauma, I would delete that sentence. Doesn't matter why you lie, you lie.
Mhm.
And let's not put it on the trauma. So I'm just take that part out. As a chronic liar, most of my life, so this is just so manipulative. As a chronic liar, most of my life,
Mhm.
due to childhood trauma and my own fears of abandonment, I don't care about your fears of abandonment or your childhood trauma. You can still tell the truth. You know, you may not be able to tell
Mhm.
it in the moment because you feel threatened or someone's going to be angry at you, but you can write it down and hand it to them later. So I do find that there's some excuses here. And the bottom line about what this person says at the end is, what can I do to help my wife? Well, one thing you can do is stop pointing the finger at your trauma. Stop pointing the finger at your issues of abandonment. That's for a therapist. It's not for your wife. Your wife or partner does not need to hear all the excuses and problems why you are who you are or where you are. What they need to hear is what's going on and hear the truth. And maybe over time they'll come to make peace with it. But the road you're going down, which is it's because of this, it's because of that, I can already see it in there. You made these choices, and your wife will never feel better about it until you say, it doesn't matter what happened to me as an adult. I made these choices. Every client I work with has trauma. I have lots of trauma, but it doesn't mean that I can't tell the truth. My truth might be, I'm afraid to tell you the truth right now because of my trauma, but I'll tell you tomorrow. But it isn't, I'm going to keep my mouth shut and hide things from you because I'm just overwhelmed when I have to talk about it. That's a bunch of crap. So the thing that you
Mhm.
might change is the way you think about it. I think that would be a real start. Tammy, I'm going to go have dinner and walk my
Well,
dog. It's
well, I'm just
five
to say,
after.
I know it's difficult for my wife, and I'm like, it's
Oh, good.
impossible for your wife. So that's all.
Right.
Okay.
No,
Bye,
no. I forgot we were.
everybody. Thanks.
Thank you,
Oh,
Tammy. Thank you, guys. We'll be around. Come see us. Come visit us. Write us. We're around. Bye now.